Hey everybody, hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm here doing the Astrology Insight for the week of June 28th. On Monday, June 29th, we have Mercury stationing retrograde as well as the full moon in Capricorn. On Tuesday, June 30th, we have Jupiter's ingress into Leo. And then on Saturday, July 4th, we have Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini. On Monday, June 29th, we have Mercury stationing retrograde at 26 degrees Cancer, and he'll be going retrograde until July 24th, where he stations direct at 16 degrees Cancer. As well today, we have the full moon at 8 degrees Capricorn in 14 minutes, going exact at 6:56 p.m. Central Time. So I'm going to break these down individually, but before I do that, I want to remind you to take it easy today. Be gentle to yourself, be kind to other people, and try to acknowledge your accomplishments for what you have done, because there can be some little bit of insecurity that comes up today with not fully acknowledging that you have done well for yourself. Because under this Mercury retrograde, it does say there's a lot of feelings that are coming up that need to be addressed, because we need to allow our feelings to inform our experience. The sensitivities that we've been having, perhaps feeling insecure or feeling unsafe, it's time to have those conversations. It's time to bring those conversations back up. It's time to finish those conversations. So if you find that under this Mercury retrograde in Cancer, people come back to you with things that you thought were resolved, but perhaps there's some lingering feelings happening, this can be a time to really finalize those conversations or have those conversations, because it's important to acknowledge your feelings. With Mercury retrograde, we get to slow down and process and really understand and contemplate why we feel certain things. What is it connected to in our past that perhaps we can now heal? So under Mercury retrograde, that's one level. And on the other level, we have all the usual Mercury retrograde things. So we want to pay attention to our technological devices. We want to acknowledge that when we are traveling, perhaps we want to leave early. We want to make more time for perhaps errors or hiccups to happen along the way. And we can also expect changes in the marketplaces and the educational system, or reevaluating any of those things as well. So Mercury retrograde, like I said, is a time to really slow down and process. It can feel like perhaps you are being forced to slow down. And if that is the case, just do yourself a favor and slow down. Process, acknowledge, work through the things, because we don't want to just rush through things, push through things, because that's not necessarily the best thing to do during a Mercury retrograde, because things might not necessarily go as well as you would expect them to go. Even if you think you've read the paperwork through all the way and you understand everything that it says, under a Mercury retrograde, when Mercury stations direct, you might find that you missed some things. So it's really important during Mercury retrograde to everything. So redo, reevaluate, reprocess, recommunicate, because that is what Mercury retrograde can be good for. And as well today, we have the full moon at 8 degrees Capricorn in 14 minutes. And this is ruled by a Saturn in fall in Aries. So this is a trickier sort of full moon where we might only see the flaws in the things that we have created. But perhaps we can also recognize how we have limited ourselves by fear, or perhaps how we've been limited in our self-expression. And these are part of the reasons why we're not fully feeling accomplished or proud of what we have created. So under this full moon, it can be one that doesn't necessarily feel the best, because it can feel like what we have done is not good enough. We can really recognize where we've held ourselves back. And if that is the case, acknowledge that. Acknowledge that you have held yourself back perhaps in fear, that you've been limited in expressing yourself and your independence and really being that unique person in society that you need to be, because only you can be that type of person for society. We all have a unique individual role to play, and sometimes we hold ourselves back in fear, especially when Saturn is in fall in Aries. So be very kind and gentle with yourself today, and know that it is not the easiest day, but what we can do is acknowledge our feelings of insecurity, acknowledge where we feel like we've done wrong, and choose to look at it so that we can do better and move forward in a more conscious way. On Saturday, July 4th, in the early hours at 1:07 a.m. Central Time, we have Mars conjunct Uranus in Gemini. So we'll be feeling this energy for days before today as well as days after today. And so this is one of those aspects where we want to tread lightly and make sure that all the fires are put out before we move on. Make sure it's not too dry to shoot off any fireworks, because this can be one of those aspects that does bring accidents, that does bring disruptions, that does bring chaos. So it just just as we want to make sure that we are aware of our surroundings, that we are aware of what we're doing, that we're fully with what we are doing, that we're not taking any premature actions, that we think things out before we do them. This can also give us a sense of courage. This can also give us a sense of revolutionary spirit to make change happen. So today is a very dynamic day, as well as, like I said, the days leading up to today, as well as the days after today. So just kind of pay attention to any sort of dynamic energy that you're experiencing. Perhaps there's some tension, some friction that you're experiencing. It's important to sit with that as well, because we don't want to make any premature actions and cause any chaos or arguments or disruptions because we just aren't able to work through things ourselves. We want to be able to take actions from a place of grounded stability, but just know that this aspect is very volatile. So perhaps we could just feel like we're just going to fly off the handle and have an argument or an explosive interaction. But we want to make sure today that we are, like I said, aware of our surroundings. So if you're shooting off any fireworks, maybe make sure it's not too dry to shoot off fireworks. If you are doing any sort of activities, it's obviously the July 4th. So if you're drinking, make sure that you're not drinking too much, or you're keeping an eye on somebody who perhaps does look like they're drinking too much, or perhaps pay attention to anybody where you feel like there's just some tension and friction in between them, because you don't want that to become volatile. So overall, just pay attention for the next few days leading up to this aspect, as well as after this aspect, because this is one of those that we do want to pay attention to, because it can be very volatile. If you'd like to schedule a personal reading, you can contact me at 11kaivarose33.com.